I can't believe I'm going back to France in a few days. I don't actually like that. I don't like France anymore.
Bonjour, hello, and welcome to the Rosbif Rugby podcast, your one-stop shop for all things French rugby, the top 14 Pro D2, bit of National, the Champions and Challenge Cups, the French national team, and of course all the brilliant towns, cities, bars, restaurants, characters that make the French game so splendid. We're back with our man on the ground. Rob, you have just returned from Bordeaux. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm all right. I'm all right. Slightly concerned I'm going to come down with something, which ahead of going back out to France later this week is not great. But other than that, I'm okay. Had a very good weekend, very enjoyable weekend.
And you're also importantly, your wardrobe must be fit to bursting. There's going to have to be some sort of clear out, right? You're adorned in something new again.
Yeah, you're right. I was thinking about that actually. That I probably need a the clear out that you sort of had a few weeks ago. But yeah, I've got the CA Bègles jersey, which there were quite a few people wearing them in the ground. They're kind of on sale this season. I mean, it's just simply the badge and the quarters. It's not kind of, yeah, I don't know how much. I don't think it was ever worn, as it were, but it was just a blooming nice jersey, and I really wanted it. And I really like the logo, and as I mentioned last week, love the nicheness of it. Like a club that kind of doesn't really exist, well, doesn't exist anymore. No one knows. Like you got to really know what you're looking for when you see CABBG. Yeah,
Yeah, like it. We may as well go straight into it, and not just to talk about how Exeter are eventually going to rumble Montpellier in Bilbao on a Friday night. But you were in the ground for what was kind of touted as well, probably the biggest club rugby game of the year. It was yeah, quite an occasion, and you had first-hand look. Tell us about, well, maybe to start with, tell us about the Stade Chaban Delmas and the hoodoo Bordeaux Bègles fans will be glad to hear is finally over.
yeah. I mean, I think that my main takeaway is that them winning. So this was the fifth time that I've been to Stade Chaban Delmas to watch UBB, and the first time that they'd won, having lost to some pretty bang average teams in the past. Um, my main takeaway was that the post match was not really that different. I mean, we've seen it where they just go for it afterwards, no matter what. They just party. It's their big day out, and everyone's there for a party. And that was exactly the same. I think that people stayed in the state, like in the seats for much longer. I think like we were there for about 20 minutes after the game, and only then, once the kind of full lap of honor had been done, did did kind of people start to properly file out. But yeah, there was a lot of obviously the celebrations and all that, and the singing in the stands was what was different, I guess. And it's the energy of the fans and sections of the fans. I don't know how they did it for that long. It's just constant, and yeah, the enthusiasm with which people sing and keep chanting is really quite phenomenal.
Yeah, it's such a fantastic ground. I think the atmosphere and also like architecturally, it's like none of the
It's
others, is it,
beautiful,
in
yeah.
France? It's quite an amazing place to go to. Um, Rob, the game itself was quite something, and I think everyone, certainly from a sort of pundit's perspective, was a bit breathless at the end, despite maybe a slightly iffy first half, whatever you want to call it. Obviously, Bordeaux reasonably comfortable on the score sheet winners in the end. A little bit of, I was going to say, kind of reparations for the top 14 final, but perhaps that's that's just for the top 14 itself. Yeah, the game itself was fantastic. What are your kind of initial takeaways? And anything that you saw? Because I think we were WhatsApping a little bit, and sometimes the perspective can be quite different, right, on telly versus the ground. Is there anything that really stood out to you being there that swayed it one way or another?
I think it definitely, I don't know how you gauge this, but it felt like a game where someone watching it in the ground would or someone watching it on TV could have a very different opinion to someone watching it on the ground. And I can't quite put my finger on why and whether that's always the case or not. But I felt slightly injusticed for Toulouse. I thought Toulouse were really good and they were arguably the better team. And I don't quite know how I kind of gauge that, but I just thought that some of the best players on the pitch were Toulouse players. Um, and I Bordeaux kind of just had it. The things that went well for them happened in like key moments, and they took their chances, and ultimately Toulouse kind of their indiscipline in terms of the cards cost them because when Dupont was off, that was what changed it. Like it suddenly felt like Toulouse could achieve anything with him on the pitch, and then for 10 minutes when they were down to 13, I think for all of it or for a good chunk of it, and without him on the pitch, they suddenly like seemed slightly kind of not fallible, but like the inspiration and will kind of perhaps wasn't quite there, wasn't quite at the same level, and they kind of and it energized Bordeaux, and that's what gave Bordeaux the belief. And it felt like the crowd were behind them. Like it's really hard not to speak in cliches when you're talking about the being in Stade Chaban Delmas and the fans and stuff like that. But once Dupont went off and they kind of scored a try pretty soon after that, it felt inevitable from that point that Bordeaux were going to win because the crowd were just had full belief, and it felt like the belief had been sucked out of Toulouse. I don't know how that felt on TV, but
Yeah, I think towards the end it felt like it was inevitable is probably a little bit unfair because actually it was still pretty tight, wasn't it? It was like a one score game with what 10 minutes left before they just pull away ever so slightly towards the end. Um, on the Toulouse performance, I get where you're coming from. I think particularly in the first half, the that first 20 minutes when it was scoreless, it was kind of all Toulouse and Bordeaux showed a little bit. But there
some
was
of
some
Bordeaux's defence was absolutely phenomenal in
it
that
was,
period.
yeah, and I
Like
think
the
that's
Maul
the thing
defence,
to
I was like, how on earth have they stopped that?
I think that's the thing to call out is that as much as ultimately that was it. And Manny Miafu was interviewed by Ben Youngs and Dan Cole afterwards, and effectively said like for that, I think for that sort of the possession they had, they didn't get far enough ahead on the scoreboard, which is obvious when a team then rolls back and scores whatever it is, 30 points in the second half, 25 points in the second half. But I think that's true, and as you say, like. I mean, we'll talk about him in a minute. Jack Willis was unbelievable, and his breakdown work was sublime. But so was so was Bordeaux's for a lot of the game. In the
Yeah,
first half, Jefferson Poirot single handedly has stopped dead a load of attacks. You're right. The Maul defense was excellent. I thought
Woki.
Woki was brilliant. Parlu and Coleman again are just like it just seems to be getting better and better. And I think yeah, that kind of Toulouse, if not utter dominance, but the Toulouse quality possession didn't quite eventuate into the results. Also, just the results we're so used to seeing for Toulouse, right? Like when they're like that, it's usually irresistible, and it just there's only one result, and I think it's testament to how much better a side Bordeaux have become over the last 18 months that wasn't the case here.
Yeah, I think like that you're right about that, like the Maul, because I was we kind of said in the week, and I was fairly adamant throughout that Ramos's goal kicking was going to make the difference, and they had a pretty easy shot at three. I thought, cup rugby, take your points, and they that first Maul or very early on, it looked like well, this is inevitable. You know, they're going to score. They've got a great setup, and Bordeaux somehow stopped it. Um, and I think there was just a couple of key things where it felt like, well, Toulouse is just going to score here, and they didn't. And the fact that Bordeaux were the first team to score after 25 minutes or whatever, and their Maul actually looked pretty like inevitable. That looked like they were going to get over. I think Toulouse did have some phenomenal defense of their own just before that. So we were that end. We were the end that, and we were behind the post. So like quite a lot of the action in the second half, you kind of can't see it all. So it's, yeah, perhaps don't have some of the detail on some of the stuff. But you can kind of, yeah, those kind of two big mauls towards that end. And when Bordeaux scored, there was Toulouse had repelled them, but Bordeaux then looked fairly inevitable to score theirs. Yeah, it's also like you can't gauge depth. It was really hard to gauge depth from where we were. We weren't particularly high up. So like when Lucu was lining up the penalty on like 60 minutes, that I was like, he's kicking that from like the 22, isn't it? Like, or like felt like he was about 15 meters inside his own half. But from that, you talk about the inevitable thing. Like from that point, I turned to my girlfriend and said, if the score stays the same, he will win man of the match, because I don't know. From that point, it felt like he was in control. He dictated it. Dupont was off or had been off, and yeah, he kind of guided the ship when Dupont wasn't there for Toulouse.
Yeah, I
The
thought
other,
both. Sorry,
go
go
on.
for it. I was
No,
just going to say I thought both scrum halves. I know obviously the headline is the Pont yellow, but I thought both of them were exceptional.
the
Defensively, unbelievable. Kicking from hand, the standard was remarkable. And maybe there weren't quite the glimmers in attack, but I think that was more testament to the nature of the game. I feel like in the whole match, there are a couple of like standout areas, particularly early on, and poor old Dorian with his with his red card. But to me, it was one of those games that it just felt like there were so many players who had like a like a high kind of 8 out of 10 match, and that was why it didn't. There was some brilliant sparks of the attacking brilliance, and like the try for Toulouse and the at the end of the first half, and Jalibert's like little chip through, but it just felt like one of those games that was so much more compelling for the fact that the two defenses were so robust, and there were some standouts, but ultimately like the kind of floor level of performance was pretty phenomenal across the board.
yeah, I think that the weaker players kind of stood out quite a lot, like Aldeghiri being one of them. I think like Uberti, like not great defensively and not great generally. And if you looked at the two sides before the game, you'd be like they're the two weak links maybe. That just fucking drive by on those guys there from me. That Toulouse try at the end of the first half was a thing of just it makes you speechless. It was so quick and so perfectly executed. Like to see it in the flesh was just wow. That is perfection. It was so slick. Yeah. So that's what I was gonna say. With obviously our vantage point being so far away from it, the Dupont yellow card, is it for offside?
No, it's for a trip.
It's for a trip on who?
Yeah. On who was it who was going over who was carrying to get over the line? So he gets held up by Willis, doesn't
By
he?
Willis
Who
and
was it?
Dupont. Yeah.
I can't. Yeah, but it was for a trip. He sticks out a foot.
Oh.
It's
Oh
it's
well.
the sort of action. It's 100% a yellow card. It's the
Okay.
sort of thing. I'm glad to hear that clearly the rest of your trip was exploring Bordeaux and not looking at gammy highlights on YouTube. Yeah, it was one of those things
Well,
in real
I
time. I
have
don't
watched the
think
highlights, but they don't show the yellow. They don't show the yellow on the highlights.
Village. Um, yeah, it's one of those things you don't really see in normal time. I think it's also it's one of those trips where it's like the player who was it? Was it Retier? No, because Retier goes on to score the try. I can't remember who the ball carrier was who gets held up. It's one of those where they step inside, the Pont's kind of going outside. It like you sometimes see it where it's deliberate, but it's also it's not like a slide tackle.
Yeah.
And I also think it's relatively inconsequential in the final reckoning of the ball getting held up, but it is 100% a yellow card.
Okay.
I think
Okay.
Malvaca, who was also tracking back in that play, is offside and potentially is arguably more of an offence. But yes,
Yeah,
it was
because
for that rather than
I
offside.
thought he was like in front of the last foot, and then because of that, he was able to make a more dominant hit and prevent whoever it was
No, I don't.
scoring. But but yeah, you couldn't hear that. And ironically, as one of the few people that would have been able to perfectly understand Matthew Carley in the ground, I couldn't hear him. Oh, I didn't hear that anyway. And I don't think I'd even realised he'd got yellow carded without wanting to go full Chris Kamara on it. But I was able to hear quite clearly the Matthew Carley because they play it over the loudspeaker. Although I don't know about the quality of that. The red card and watching the replay, what initial thought was like, oh well, there's been a clash there. That's quite nasty. Then it's like my girlfriend was like, is he gone a bit football there? As in, as Penno milked it, basically. And then there's that one angle where it's like, no, that is shoulder to head. From that point, it's like, well, he's getting a red card here.
I've got to say,
it's just a bizarre, it's a weird moment.
I think weird is the right word. I do feel a bit for Aldegheri in the sense that we've spoken about.
You're an Aldegheri sympathiser, Richard.
Well, I think he's like he's had it. I say it's not his fault. There are not many good French tight heads, and he keeps getting trotted out. I think it's more the fact that his game in the loose is so far behind, like so many modern props. The fact in this one, he's found himself in the outside centre channel, busting a gut, and is clearly trying to kind of influence the defence and gets it so wrong. I think the reason I feel a little bit sorry for him is that it's not like he's gone like the CJ Stander flying elbow into, was it Pat Lammy all those years ago, that sort of thing. He kind of like he sort of half jumps in. It's like half a rubbish block. But when you're 20 stone, and it just goes so much more wrong than it should do. It looks on first glance. I'm kind of with what you're saying there. It looks like one of those blocks. It's cynical. It's silly. It's a penalty, maybe a yellow card, and then you see it and you're like, Dorian, what have you done? Like, he also gets himself off the floor. He like jumps. Like if he just stands there, it has the same effect of disrupting the play. I just think, yeah, sums it up. It was what was remarkable after that as well is I don't think there was a scrum until the 20-minute period had elapsed, which given how many scrums there were in the first half an hour. And I think obviously it had an effect overall, but I think actually the effect was diminished slightly because they didn't have to whip off Cross or Willis or Jalonch or I don't know whoever it would have been. But not no, it's not been a great few months for Dorian Aldegheri.
Yeah, Merkler, by the way, is absolutely enormous. I know of their rugby players, they're all enormous. He looks big. He looks real big. I thought also the way they played with Dupont off the field, like rotating Willis and Ramos as scrum half was quite impressive. Willis was just this. He was amazing. His speed at some of the turnover work is barely believable when you see it live. And you just find yourself going around just so many involvements. I was like Willis again. He was magnificent. I thought Dupont was really, really good. Just the way he danced, it was proper. There was a lot of talk from the guys in the Times have spoken about it quite a lot recently about the kind of, is it Pierre Villepreux kind of school of rugby? If you go forward, but if you can't find space, you go sideways to find space. And the way that Dupont does that, kind of skips along the line and is just eyeing things up is it's like a matador. It's really, really cool to see. We spoke about it over text as well. Ntamack had a really good game.
Yeah,
he looked really assured. I can see why people love the kind of calmness, and we both saw him at Stade de France against South Africa, and that we saw the other side of it where it doesn't look quite as good and it looks slow and apathetic. But I thought he looked really, really good, and I thought Ramos. The other thing, being end on, you don't see everything, right? You don't have a perfect view of everything, but you can appreciate how Ramos covers the turf. Just his involvements and how he gets around the park and is just always in play. He's always involved, which for a fullback is relatively rare. I think he's amazing. I love watching him play. Like he's just what a rugby player. He's just so intelligent. Um, I mean, I've just spoken about 4 or 5 Toulouse players there. Bordeaux won. Woki, I think Woki won Oscar of the Week in Midi Olympique.
Okay.
Um, Lucu, yeah, you're right. Just again, like Dupont, like he made so many tackles, puts his like head in the spokes quite a lot.
I think it was 30 tackles between them or something like
Really,
that. Yeah, yeah.
so,
I think they were both the highest tackle count.
around the fringes as well. He's just so sharp, and he's a lovely, lovely player to watch. I think I think there's a few people kind of being like, oh, Lucu better than Dupont, like semi jokingly or like outplayed Dupont. I think that's just because of the yellow card. I think other than that, they were both excellent. Um, Jalibert, yeah, Jalibert. I wouldn't necessarily. I was like blown away, but he just the injection of pace in everything he does. You kind of really notice kind of a spark when he gets like on the ball as kind of he is intent on making something happen here. He is intent on attacking. Like you kind of really feel that. The one thing that we were underwhelmed by, both me and my girlfriend, because he'd been given a big hype up by people in that we'd spoken to the previous day. Louis Bielbiere finally shackled.
Yeah, it's quiet, wasn't it? Part that initial hack
Oh
through when you're
yeah,
like, oh my God, the speed that guy is moving is freakish. But yeah,
surely
he
that's a
was.
yellow card penalty try as well. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's not
I
far.
was obviously around quite a
It's
lot of people
very
that thought that.
it's one of those is I think Ntamack knows what he's doing, but he disguises it very, very well.
He knows what he's doing. Seen him given.
We've seen him
It's, it's,
given.
it's coming together. It's coming together.
He was shackled a little bit, and I think Jalibert maybe slightly less influential in terms of those like just kind of multiple attacking moments. I thought defensively he was excellent again, which has become a
Yeah.
real feature. And again, some of his kicking from hand was
The 50-22 is
it's
ridiculous.
gone miles.
Yeah.
Like
And he's like on the
yeah,
back foot, isn't he? Like
yeah,
he's
for
kind of
it's a
like
line
it's
out turnover, but
instinctive.
it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's brilliant. And some of his, even small bits, like some of his touch finders from penalties
Yeah.
were superb. And there's that, the little chip through that kind of the collision and then he goes over. I thought it was and I think again that the point I was trying to make around that kind of 8 out of 10s across the board game, like it wasn't a match where it was particularly easy for any back to absolutely sparkle. Although I thought Rayassi was really good again. What a signing he's been.
He was in the Midi Olympique team of the week at 15, ahead of Ramos.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I can see an argument for that, but
Yeah.
yeah, Ramos was very good. The two other guys I just want to briefly for Bordeaux call out. And I mentioned it to you before. We spoke about Parlu and Coleman. It felt like a game for some of the slightly less heralded names. I mean, Timo Matthieu. There's been a lot of talk. Bordeaux bench was fantastic. Matthieu, I thought looked so high class. Like some of
Yeah.
his carrying, he took a high ball at one point, and you're like, blimey, he's a very,
He's
very
giant.
skillful player.
He's a lot
Yeah,
taller in the flesh than you. I mean, Woki is just towering over even like makes Coleman look normal sized. I think Coleman is technically taller than him, but yeah, they all look giants. Like a lot of the
yeah.
Bordeaux pack.
Washington was very good in the back row as
Yeah,
well.
really good.
Very feisty. And I thought Arthur Etienne, the cup specialist, was amazing off the bench.
Yeah,
One for his like aggression carrying, but also that period of play, that sort of last 20 minutes, it was like he effectively became, which obviously he does, and he's sort of a winger by trade who plays scrum half to enable that 6-2. But they had two full-time scrum halves on the pitch, and I think it showed like the pace of ball they got in the last 15 minutes, because it did, like, Retier just took it upon himself. If Lucu wasn't there, he's like, we're just gonna go. I thought he was awesome. Was really,
he is.
really impressed.
He is also someone that doesn't look big in the flesh. Um, my girlfriend was like, "Is that he's
To
tiny?"
address the balance
Yeah,
slightly.
because like they were warming up in front of us, so we kind of saw quite a lot of the Bordeaux bench. And she was like, is he big enough to play rugby?" sort of thing.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, he's cup specialist, as you say. He's I think he's finally getting a little bit of recognition as a kind of a brilliant all round player he is.
Yeah,
Um,
fantastic.
yeah, I mean, what a day, exhilarating set. Like the yeah cliches slash I'm an absolute loser, but like hairs on the like goosebumps and hair standing up did happen quite a lot in that second half. Like the roar of the crowd or the pace of the play and stuff like that. It was yeah, very obviously we were very lucky
Class.
to be there, and we paid €10 each to be there,
Can't
which is
say can't say
just
fairer than that.
just ridiculous.
Yeah,
Yeah,
outstanding. The other, just to quickly round off the European stuff, then, early on the Saturday, there will be Toulouse won't be there, but Toulon have made it to a semi-final with a really, really impressive win over Glasgow, it must be said, which I managed to catch. I saw a lot of rugby this weekend, which was quite agreeable. Um,
my
yeah, I
favorite
don't
rugby weekend of the year,
quarter
the
final.
quarterfinals. I think it's the best rugby weekend of the year because you get at least four, if not eight, like high quality knockout, big intensity, dramatic games. We should do anyway.
Yeah, it was awesome. And Toulon, I think, don't want to kind of linger on them too long because we've got guests to talk to, but a fantastic result given their obviously their travails in the league. I think they're what 11th came in. A couple of brilliant post-match interviews. Junior Kapoku, who basically you said fuck about 15 times. I actually missed it to start with, and I came back in the front room, and my wife was like, "That's the most amazing interview I've ever seen." After like he just absolutely went for it. So that yeah, that was cool. And then Zach Mercer was very in his sort of northern drawl, telling him about how like the woman at WH Smith said they were going to lose when they landed and stuff like that. So there was definitely they spoke quite a bit about that sort of siege mentality stuff. It was a strange game in the sense that I think from a Glasgow perspective, a lot of Glasgow commentary online afterwards, like huge missed opportunity, shouldn't have lost at home to that Toulon side, which is fair enough. I think you also look at the 2-15s and you're like, ooh, that it talks, I think, to the fact to how underwhelming and how much Toulon have underperformed. I mean, obviously, like there's some high quality players, like some amazingly high quality players in that Glasgow side, particularly like the back row and with Tui Pelotu and the guys on the wing. But so are there for Toulon. And yeah, the first half they were actually pretty wasteful in possession. Discipline was shocking from Toulon, like such silly penalties, ref back chat. And they managed to just kind of steady it a bit in the second half. And then it was the Brex try, which was an absolute worldie to kind of seal it. And Glasgow just couldn't quite get back in it. But yeah, fair play to them. It was, I think there was probably a bit of a feeling of it being their season. And I think the exciting thing, and where I'm rambling a bit now, but the exciting thing if you're a Toulon fan is I think there's so much more in the tank from that performance. There were still so many errors. The line out in the first half was like 20%. They lost pretty much every single one of their line outs. Um, yeah, and hopefully, I don't know, you might have someone like Ludlam coming back in. Serran was on the bench, so maybe he'll start in a few weeks. Yeah, exciting times from them. Yeah, Jean-Baptiste Gross was incredible yet again. Just him and Sinclair as a front row pairing have been monumental in an iffy
Yeah,
season. Very,
complete
very
big run as well
impressive.
with Priso out for all season, the rest
Mm.
of the season with his. I feel like there's a lot of Achilles injuries knocking around in rugby at the moment. Just as an
Yes.
aside, but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I caught the last 4 minutes of this in a bar in Santa Milion. We were kind of waiting for a taxi, which then ended up taking ages, so we had to have a couple of glasses of wine. And then it was closely followed by the allo of sports coverage match of the day. I couldn't believe that when I saw it. I was like, sorry, that cannot be true. But when they
So
on
I
Canal
look
Plus, when they show the English football, it is called Match of the Day, ZE.
So good. It's just more of a sense of humor in France. That's excellent. I want to hear a bit more about your trip and also look ahead to you're heading back this weekend.
Yeah, I feel quite unprepared for that, I have to say. It feels yesterday like genuinely slightly anxious on the flight back, being like, I can't believe I'm going back to France in a few days. I don't actually like that. I don't like France anymore.
And yeah, in the meantime, Rob, people can follow us where?
We are at Rosbifs Rugby on all social media. Your social media channel of choice: YouTube, Instagram, X, Blue Sky. Yeah, check it out.
Fantastic. Get in touch. Let us know what you're doing for Derby weekend. And we'll be back with you very soon. I've been Rich. That's been Rob. We've been the Rosbif Rugby podcast. Au revoir.
Au revoir.